Welcome to Blender. In this video, I'm going to go over the asset browser and show you how to put objects and materials into it and get it working. So the first thing we need to do is set up a folder for our asset browser. So I'm going to drop to the desktop and make a new folder. And I'm going to go ahead and take my Blender files. These are both of my files I have all my dot blends in. I'm just going to take both of them and drag them into my new folder. If you don't have any, that's okay. But we just want to have a asset folder with some blend files in it because this is where we're going to save all our blend files from now on. So the only issue we have with doing it this way is for those people who like to save as over and over and over again and make multiple blend files of the same thing, if you mark an asset or if you mark an object as an asset and you save as, your asset browser is going to end up with two of the same asset in it. So that can be tricky, but we can explain that later if you run into issues with it. Um, I want to make a tab up here for my asset browser. So I'm just going to use the layout tab and I'm going to right click on it and duplicate it. And that gives you a layout 001. I'm going to double click it and just name it asset browser. And then I'm going to take my timeline down here. I'm going to move it up and click the little time thingy over here. And we're going to change that to asset browser. And that sets us up. So before we get too carried away, if you didn't name this folder, go ahead and rename it to assets or asset folder or something. And then we're going to go to Edit, Preferences, File Paths, and then click the little plus here and find your asset folder. So it's this one, and then add to assets, and you'll have the path here. And then you can name this. So I'm going to name it Goons Asset Library. I'll just name it Assets. There we go. And then go down to your little three guys and hit save, and then you can close that. Also, we need to go to File, Defaults, and Save Startup File. But before I do that, I want to put it on Layout because when I open Blender, I want it to be on Layout. So File, Defaults, Save Startup File, and then Save Startup File again. And that gets you all saved and set up and ready to go. Okay, so how do we use this thing? Well, let's click our Asset Browser. And if we're doing a fresh scene and everything, and this is like our first asset we're going to make, I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift A, Mesh, and make a cube. And to get this cube in your asset browser, we right click on the cube in the collections and mark as asset, and that puts it here. So over here you have your current file. This is the current file that you're working in. If you want to change anything with an asset, you have to be in that asset's current file. So right now we are, because we just made it. And we marked it as an asset, but it's not saved as an asset we can access from other blend files because we haven't saved this blend file. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to make another cube. So I'm going to copy this one and I'm going to put a material on it because we're going to do both. So new material, and I'm going to change it to blue. So now I got a blue material on a cube. So this cube is here, and the material, we can actually go to the Materials Properties tab, right click on it, and mark as an asset. And in a second, we got a material. So there's the materials. They're in the current file, which isn't saved yet, so none of this stuff is permanent yet. If we want to make it permanent, we can go ahead and save this file in our blend file. So File, Save As. I'm going to go to my asset folder, and one of my Blender files we'll put in this one, and just name it Asset Test, and Save As. So now these objects are saved in the Blender file, which is in the Assets folder. So now we can change it to our Assets folder. So once we're in our actual asset folder, we can make subfolders for these things to live in. So if I click the plus, I get a new catalog and my objects disappear. So I'm going to make this catalog mesh, and then I'm going to actually click it again and make a subfolder of that these act like filters. So for this, I'm going to do uh, basic mesh shapes. So I have that, and I also want to go up to the all again, and I want to make one for materials. So I'm going to click the plus, rename it materials, and give that a subfolder of, uh, let's call it BSDF because that's kind of all it is. So now there's nothing in these folders yet, but what we can do, we can go back to the all, and we can drag these out of here and drop them in the folders they belong in. So I want that one in mesh shapes, and I want my material in the BSDF, and now they're in there filtered wise. So all shows you everything. Then materials will show you all the materials in the subfolders, and then the subfolder itself will have the material by itself. So if we added more of these, you would see the difference a little better. So we've made our material folders and our mesh folders, but if you can see there's asterisks on them, so that means they are not saved. So we're going to go up here to file, and we're just going to save again, and that gets rid of our asterisks. So now that we have some stuff in our asset browser, let's go ahead and open up a new file or a previous file and see what happens. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to open Blender, and I'm going to open up my can file and go out of edit mode. So at the moment our tab's gone up here because it's an old file and I didn't tell it to load my startup file with the cogwheel. So if you hit the plus and go to general, you'll see your asset browser, whatever you named it, and you can just add it in there and it'll be way over here. So now I can take, and let's say I want my can to be blue. I can go to my materials and there's nothing there. Well, that's because we're still on the current file. So if we switch it to our asset file, now it is. And we can take that asset and we can drag it out and drop it right on the model, and it will change the color of the model. Same with this one. And on the top two. Or we can go to mesh and we can grab our cube and we can drop our cube in the scene. And since this folder that I'm working in is in my assets browser folder, my blend file's in the asset browser folder, I can take the can and I can right click and mark it as an asset. And then go to file and save it. Oh, that ain't gonna work. Go back to all. I have to actually put it in here somewhere. Or no, I don't. It's there. But I am gonna take it and put it in the. Actually, I'm gonna make a new folder. So I'll make another one and do cans. And now I can go to all, drop my cans in there, file, save, and then now our cans are in there. So if I go here, it's just a can. If I go to basic mesh shapes, it's there. If I go to mesh, both of them are there. If I go to all, I get my materials and my can. Now, when you're uh, saving these assets, the point of origin matters as far as rotation and stuff. So I'm going to hide this and this and this. And I'm going to Alt G and put this back where it belongs. And I'm going to, yeah, let's move it down too. Oops. There, so I got my point of origin on the bottom there. Now if I rotate this can and I do object, apply, all transforms, that's going to set the rotation and everything to this. So now if I take this can and I've already got marked as an asset. Let's unmark it. So clear asset. And then we're going to mark it again and see what it does. So now my can is sideways. And if I go here, it's not in there anymore, so I have to put it back in. And now it is. So depending on how you want to look at your can, or object rather, make sure your orientation is right because it'll come in, the preview will come in just like it is on the y-axis, forward y-axis. Okay guys, that's it for this video. I hope it helped you and I hope you understood what's going on there with the asset browser because it's great to use. Get yourself a nice materials file and a lot of different meshes and you can build a scene pretty quick with assets. If you liked the video, go ahead and like and subscribe and I will see you in the next one. Thanks.